Hello, I'd like to welcome you to this tutorial that me and my friend have prepared for you, and well, we'll get right to it. In this tutorial we'll show you a lot of interesting stuff that you can use in all different places in your projects, and we will do some grain removal, we will do some color corrections, and all the stuff that may not be as super cool to look at, but they will help you a long way to make your footage look more realistic. So here we have footage that my friend is just scrubbing through, and as you can see, there is a some cop flying and shooting, and someone worked on this footage before us. And he made several mistakes. First off, you can see above the cop there was a rope they used to attach the actor. Yeah, let's see. And the guy before us did rather sloppy job on removing it. You can see there are some ghosts going on above, like ghost effects going on above the cop. Another thing is the color of the blood behind the guy. You can see it's very bright, which doesn't look believable at all, and there is a lot of it. Well, if you're going for some Quentin Tarantino effect kind of movie, that might be what you're looking for, but if you want to make it at least a little bit realistic, color should be different. And another thing is, we can see the hand of the guy as he's squirting the fake blood in the shot. So that's another thing we'll have to we want to get rid of completely. Yeah, and there is a whole fist possible to see. You might not notice it when watching the movie, but there are all the video geeks out there that. So first off, we'll start with the removing of the rope that's used for attaching the actor up there. And to do it, we will need a clean plate that's been shot before this action scene, with just the room alone. And this is a really good idea to don't forget to do this before you're filming any action scenes where you will want to remove something eventually, because this will help you a lot. One thing we will do with this scene before we can use it though is removing the grain. This is not it's not a photo, so there is some grain. But first off, my friend is demonstrating the built-in plugin Remove Grain. It's been part of Adobe After Effects for a while, and it does a pretty good job. As you can see, most of the grain is probably gone, although you can much better see it when you play the video. But just by the look at just by looking at it, it seems it's doing a pretty good job. Well, there is still a lot of grain going on, as you can see now. So that's why we will show you another technique. It's a little bit old school, but very efficient when working with these static shots. And that's blending multiple layers of the same footage over each other. We are done duplicating the layers. There is quite a few of them. I'm not sure if, well, you can see it got rid of a lot of grain. So we have rendered out a single frame from the degrained shot. Alright, now that we have the background TIFF rendered out, we can use it to replace the part of a scene that's been crossed or overlapped by the rope. And it's better to use a bigger field or a bigger plane rather than just detail that would mask you know, the rope only, because if there are some imperfections in your tracking, or you know, the footages are not blending all that well together, you can get away with you know, you can get away with some imperfections if you're using bigger fields rather than details. So what my friend is going to do now is he wants to track the window in the background, basically, because there is some camera motion going on, and he wants to track it so he could apply that still image on top of it. And to do that, first we have to do a mask around this cup, you know, to have the track, to have the better track. Because what you can do is you can track multiple subjects in your scene and create these masks around them, and then have the masks like subtract each other. So, for example, or you know, so when you want to track something in the background, you can mask out something that's in the foreground, and that will not affect your track afterwards. It comes very handy when there is, you know, something moving across the scene, like in our case, because it will be crossing the you know, the leg will be crossing the window, and you know, he's doing it just very roughly. If we got quite a lot of space to work with, but if you want to do like more precise tracking, you could already start revealing the window that's underneath the leg. So now that we have the mask around the foreground cup, we can start tracking the window in the background. And so the order of the masks is very important, because you know, the mask you're using for subtracting the subject should be above the one that you use for tracking. At least I hope that's the case. But it seems to be working. Yeah. So our layer 1 is the mask, and layer 2 is the track, which we've just copied to clipboard, and now we can paste it into the After Effects, and you can see it creates a whole bunch of keyframes for position, scale, and rotation. And you want to, you know, we will not need the keyframes for anchor point at this point, so it's good to remove them. Sorry. And it seems the track is holding pretty well. And since we did just a very rough track, we will turn off the rotation as well, because it was a little bit messy, and we don't really need a rotation in this shot, in this particular one. Right, so the basically what you want to do, and it's not all you need to do, but the very basic is making the darkest and lightest areas of the shot or the footage you want to blend in, make them as close to the footage that you're blending it into as possible, and do it for each individual channel. So now we are on a red channel, we're just clipping the darkest and lightest areas using the levels effect on the green. And you can toggle between the channels either like this, or by pressing Alt 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. Looking pretty good. some slight adjustments. You know, this is rather crude effect. If you want to go more into details, there is. So what we did now is, you know, we got rid of the rope on the background, but we got rid of part of the policeman, and we need to get him back to front, which we've already done before. We're not gonna go through the whole process again. But basically how we did it was creating a shape around the cop, then tracking his movement, and applying the track to the shape so it follows him, and, you know, adjusting the shape over time. You can see here the track, and you know, the shape is just a solid with animated mask on it. You can see now how it's separating the cop from the background. So another thing you might have noticed, there is a lot of smoke going on in the footage with the cop, and there was no smoke in the footage that we used for covering the background or the rope. So now we need to you know, use a really soft mask and add a bit of the smoke over the the still image in the background, so it blends more nicely. Okay. Alright, so now we want to get rid of the hand. We'll use similar technique as we used for removing the rope, which is, you know, using the plate or part of the shot from our still image. Unfortunately, we don't have that part of a shot, you know, that we need here, so we'll just, you know, use a piece from a different place and color correct it. We've used the same track for this one as for the rope, as the camera is moving. You know. And again, we will use levels to color correct it. Alright, so now one thing, we did the area, you know, use the rather big area just to avoid that predator effect that we showed you before. It was happening above with the rope, and here as well. When you're just doing such a small detail, you know, all the little imperfections are much more visible, and it's like wavy, blurry. And another thing we'll do now is reintroduce the blood into the scene. Which we're just fixing some mask here, because it was, you know, taking a bit of the other hand out as well, which we didn't want. A friend of mine is a master of masking. We've met making video compositing in one studio, He was well known for his masks there. No one wanted to work on projects after him because it's very efficient, but it's really hard to. It can be really confusing for someone who wasn't looking over his shoulder. So yeah, the most contrast channel is in this case the green one. Surprisingly enough, one would expect it to be the red when we're dealing with blood, but it's green, and we will use an effect called Colorama and choose the input phase to be green to get the blood back into the footage. And we're now making a Luma mask for. You can see since we're using the green channel as an input and output cycle is just a ramped gray, you can see that we're getting really nice and contrast black and white image, which we can use as a Luma mask on the original footage and mask just the blood and put it back in the foreground. Like so. And now you just pre-compose the blood layer. We didn't have too many layers going on there, and you can already see it's doing a pretty good job. Okay, now we can see we got this blank area going on, and we want to put some more blood into it, which you can do either by using some stock footage blood, or something that you record yourself, or as we did, you can use particle systems. We're using Particular by Trapcode. It's a third-party plugin, but I really recommend you to get it because it's very powerful and you can do all sorts of stuff there. What we did here, we basically just tracked the source of the particles to the motion of the camera, and we did two layers, or like two layers with these particles, squirts or bursts, just to match the motion of the blood that was there originally. And we're not gonna go through the process of setting it up, because there is a lot of nice tutorials on this on the internet. I just copied it from the scene we did before, but yeah, it wasn't. And the next thing we need to do is adding some blood on the back of the shot through guy. Some blood squirting from his back, and it's pretty much the same as we already explained. That's just tracking and color correcting. We'll add this nice looking hole on his back and add some footage or particles. And again, we are using some tracks from the from our composition that we made before, because we already explained the basics, and it would be just too time consuming to do it over again. So here we have the whole color corrected and blurred a little bit. The idea is that there shouldn't be anything darker or lighter than you can see that the blood was maybe a little too dark at some points, so we'll lighten it up a little. It's maybe a little too much. Alright, now we're gonna do some muzzle flashes. It's pretty simple. You just crank the guns and you put some footage of muzzle flash on top of it. There is a lot of them available online, so we're using this one of them, and we are using the screen blending mode to blend it with the background, and we are putting multiple instances, I think 2 or 3 on top of each other to create that, you know, glow halo kind of effect around it. And also you can see we have multiple instances offset in time, and that's because you know, the muzzle flash occurs only on 1 frame, and since this is a slow motion, or you know. Alright, now that we're almost done, what we need to do now is match the grain of all the like different parts of the composition to make it blend together more nicely. We're gonna separate the cup because it's already grainy enough, and all the other parts, you know, the window and the wall and the blood that we've added in, we need to add some grain on it. So we have it here in a pre-composition, and we duplicated the pre-composition because when you're adding grain, you want to make it, you want to add it using adjustment layer. You know, never put it on the moving on the parts of the scene that are moving, because the grain doesn't move. You know, it shouldn't move with the footage. So we used 1 instance of all the elements that we've added as a mask for the adjustment layer with the gray, with the match grain effect on it. There are some like the blood that we've added. It, you know, the part of the blood that we recycled, that we used from the footage and just masked it using the Colorama, it already has a grain on it, so we just separated it and put it on top of the adjustment layer that we're gonna use now. You know, you don't want to add like a double grain on it. Okay, so now to adding the grain. We're gonna use effect called match grain, which is pretty good. You know, sometimes you have to do it manually, but sometimes it does a pretty good job. And when we want to match the grain that's happening on the footage, add it to the static parts or generated parts that we added. Seems to be alright, you know, comparing the grain that's on the window that we've added with the grain that's on the wall next to it. It's always better to have it smaller than larger, you know, if it's not perfectly the same. And we're also gonna show you how to do it manually, as I mentioned before, using the add grain built-in plugin. And again, we will look into different channels, because you know, the different channels have different intensity and size and softness of the grain. Usually the blue one is the one that's most different from the others. Alright, now it seems that the grain is set up. Alright, and we are done. So thank you for watching this exciting and very confusing tutorial. This might be the last one we did like this, you know. My friend doing the work and I torturing the English language. But yeah, thanks for watching. We hope that you've learned something, and just keep videoing.